Jersey's own Zach Gelb.
Or maybe it's Pennsylvania. Anyhow, it's one of the two, I'm pretty sure.
The Zach Gelb Show continues
on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Welcome back, Zach Gelb Show on this Monday. Time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates Studios is 5:18. Talk to Howard Johnson in hour number one about the All-Star Game and his recollections from his two All-Star Game appearances. And now joining us on the hotline is a 1969 Mets World Series champion pitcher, played for the Mets for the majority of his career, and then ended his career in Philadelphia with the Phillies. You have the Home Run Derby tonight and the All-Star Game tomorrow. So it's my honor to welcome in Jerry Koosman, who joins us now on the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. Jerry, great to talk to you, and how are you?
Well, thank you. Good to be with you. I'm fine. Thanks for asking.
Well, thank you for coming on. So I know you're playing some golf tomorrow. Where are you playing golf tomorrow, and how's your swing going?
Oh, I played out in the Richmond golf course, and my swing, there's a lot of room for improvement. There always is in golf, you know.
No doubt about that. I was talking a little bit with one of the salespeople here, and they were asking me if I played golf, and I said, hey, I love playing golf, but I don't play it enough, and I just hope when I swing the club, Jerry, the ball goes straight.
Yeah, don't we all?
So the All-Star Game coming up tomorrow in San Diego. You first made your All-Star Game, your first All-Star Game, early on in your career back in 1968. What do you remember about the day that you found out that you were going to the All-Star Game?
I was highly excited and very enthused, and felt very privileged to be picked amongst the best in the National League, and there were some great players in the National League then, so I was looking forward to meeting them.
And you look at some of the players that were on the National League roster during your two All-Star games, Don Drysdale, you had Steve Carlton, Bob Gibson, and you're competing against those guys in the regular season, but you guys come together for the All-Star Game. What was that interaction like with some of the all-time great pitchers in the game, you being a young kid at that time?
Well, you said that right. I was the young kid, and I walk into that clubhouse, and you see these guys there, and you're new. You don't know just really how to act or what to say and whether you should be the first to go up and say hi or whatever. But I was just amazed at looking around and seeing Willie Mays and Hank Aaron and Bob Gibson and, oh, gosh, just go on and on. It was just what an all-star lineup, your chest sticks out and you're so proud to be there. And, of course, I was quiet. I didn't say much, but I did shake hands as the evening went along with many different ones, especially the ones that were lockering close to you. But, it was a wonderful memory.
And I take a look back at your stats in those two All-Star games. In the first one, you had a third of an inning. You had a big strikeout for the save to give the NL the victory. And then the second one, you had a lengthier appearance with an inning and 2/3 in 1969 and one hit. You take a look back, that's some pretty impressive stuff in the All-Star game, looking back at it all these years.
Well, thank you. The first one you mentioned was in Houston, and Johnny Bench was the catcher, and they brought me in from the bullpen to pitch. There was 2 out in the 9th inning, and we were leading 1-0, and I don't remember who was on base, but I struck Yastrzemski out on, I think, 3 or 4 fastballs, and the game was over.
How nervous were you going in there?
Happy.
How nervous were you going in there to get that save?
I would say doing 9 or 10. Yeah. I was throwing hard, but certainly didn't have good control. You're pumped up and you're letting it go as hard as you can throw it.
We're talking to Jerry Koosman, who joins us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. And everyone in New York remembers you pitching alongside Tom Seaver. And you guys were both pretty young back then. What did you guys teach each other at that time when you're both trying to make it, you being the lefty and then Tom obviously being the righty?
Well, one conversation I remember when we started the season in 67, I believe it was 67, that we wished each other a 20-win season and that we'd get 5 years in the big leagues so we qualified for the pension plan. And that's what, and that's what it was at that time, 5 years. Now, then it went up to 10. No, it was 10 years. I'm sorry, it was 10 years. So we wish we get 10 years in to qualify for the pension plan. Well, since then they've dropped it down to 5 years, and then now it's down to, I think, 1 day.
Well, it must drive you nuts now seeing the amount of money that the players get in the game now, right?
Don't bring that stuff up.
So you're looking at some of the players now, and you see what the Mets have. There's a lot of high hopes for their rotation, especially with the year that they had last year going to the World Series. And you had the unfortunate news with Matt Harvey as he's going to be out for the season with thoracic outlet syndrome. And they have the still the fear of Matz, who's pitching with the bone chip in his elbow, and Syndergaard now has a bit of a dead arm. What advice would you give to some of those current Mets starting pitchers that are young and trying to bring a World Series championship to New York like yourself and Tom are able to do?
Oh, wow. You just listed off a lot of negatives there. That's news to me. I didn't know Harvey was going to be out the rest of the year. I heard about DeGrom's tired arm, which happens. I mean, I think we've all went through that. Years ago, some coaches said you just pitch through it. Some said you rest. But most of them, I think, back when I first came up, was they say you just pitch through it. It's something that always happens. But, the doctors have to make that decision, and the pitcher, you mentioned what was wrong with Matt Harvey. I didn't understand the term you used. What?
Yeah, he has a thoracic outlet syndrome right now, and it's one of those syndromes that you've seen players before in the past. It actually ended Chris Carpenter's career, where it could either be career-ending or it's something that you could bounce back from. And there's guys that have had some success coming back from it, but it was one of those injuries where you could either get the surgery and possibly come back the next year, or not get the surgery, but then it really isn't considered as effective if you didn't get the surgery. So Matt elected to get the surgery, and now he's going to be done for the year.
Are you talking about elbow surgery?
It's not elbow. It's more of shoulder. It's in between that the neck and the armpit. So it's more of a shoulder injury for one Matt Harvey. Just wanted to let you know that.
Oh, okay. So that sounds like it'd be something, maybe a nerve problem, huh?
It's with the blood vessels and all that stuff. So,
okay.
That's why it's a real serious injury and why he had to get the surgery. But hopefully for the Mets, they can have a better second half and they can back up into the World Series and bring home another World Series to Queens for the Mets.
Well, thank you. I'm rooting for him, and I hope all goes well with his operation and DeGrom and Matz, and they do win.
As we're talking to Jerry Koosman, who joins us right now. Hey, Jerry, let me ask you this. You watch all these Mets pitchers right now, and you see a player like a Noah Syndergaard that goes on out there on the mound. And Noah Syndergaard has a 100-mile-an-hour fastball and then a 95-mile-an-hour slider. How much of a treat is it to watch a player like a Noah Syndergaard?
Those are the only pitchers I really care to watch, power pitchers. In 69... we had I would say, lean towards a power pitching staff. Not everybody was a power pitcher, but majority were, Gentry and Seaver, myself, etc. But I love watching good pitching. And when you watch good pitching with the pitcher having good thoughts on the mound and working the hitter properly, there's nothing better to watch on TV than that. I just feel bad right now for the bad news. It's too bad you got three top pitchers there that have some kind of physical injuries.
Yeah, and you looked at Harvey, and it was a lot of shoulder discomfort this year, stuff they were saying along those lines, and he was 4-10, and the ERA wasn't there, so you knew something was up, especially last year, how dominant he was, especially in Game 5 of that World Series, pitching into the ninth inning, and just bringing up a World Series back in '69, really, you were on top of your game in the World Series, the complete game, and then also 8 2/3. We've had on a lot of big-time pitchers in the past. Kurt Schilling, who always had the big-time stuff in the postseason. Just what made you so good in the big moment on that big stage?
Well, if you don't mind, I'll back up a little bit. You know, when you're in the minor leagues, they bring you along a little slow. They don't make you throw a whole lot of innings your first year. So you throw so many innings. Next year you throw some more, and they build you up to, you know, when you're about to get to the big leagues. Then you get to the big leagues, they don't really want you to throw too much either, but because in the big leagues you're playing 162 games. The starter is supposed to pitch every fourth or fifth day, and it's a lot of wear and tear on the arm. And they don't really know how well you're going to hold up until you got, you know, 2, 3, 4 years, you know, into your career, and see if that arm holds up. With myself, I never had those kind of problems that lasted long. You're 69, I was pitching in Montreal at Jerry Park, and it was about 39 or 40 degrees out, and I had 2 out in the 5th inning, and I threw a 0-2 pitch to John Bateman, the catcher, a fastball inside, and my arm went numb. Well, come to find out, it was teres minor muscle knotted up. Well, once we found that out, you know, it took a month to milk the knot out again, and then I was fine. So I missed a month that year. But, you know, normally every player is going to have some type of an injury. You don't want to play through all the injuries. Sometimes you need rest and healing, and et cetera. But all sports, there's going to be injuries. And the stronger you are, the better shape you're in, the less injuries you're going to have.
And let me just also take you back to what you were able to do in '69, and really an underrated part of that team when you take a look back at the history was Jerry Grody. Can you just describe to our audience how good he was defensively and the way that he called the game? Because I think that's a really underrated part when you look at the history of baseball.
Well, Jerry Grody was just one heck of a competitive ball player. I mean, once you drive to the park and once the ballpark come in sight, he had his game face on, and he was already mad at the opposing players' team, no matter who they were. But Grody was very nice to throw to. He had a comfortable position behind the plate where he sat low, looked comfortable. He caught you like he's catching you with a tweezers. And you could throw a 100, 105-mile-an-hour fastball, and Grody could make it sound like a shotgun blast or make it sound like a dead thud. If you thought you were really throwing hard to impress it, he could make it sound like a dead thud. But he was an excellent receiver, great defensive catcher.
As we're talking to Jerry Koosman, who joins us, 1969 World Series champion, played for the Mets and the Phillies. And by the way, I want to ask you this because coming up in a few weekends at the end of the month, Mike Piazza's having his number retired by the Mets. And I was surprised, and I'm a big Met fan growing up as a kid watching the Mets, that your number's not retired. Does that annoy you at all?
No, it doesn't. I'm not into that kind of stuff. If, you know, I'm happy for Mike Piazza and Seaver, all of them. Casey Stengel, Gil Hodges, that's great. But, no, my number doesn't have to be retired. That's there for the stars. Let the stars' numbers be retired.
Well, you were one star in '69 and then also in '73 and during your time with the Mets. By the way, with '73, I know you guys lost in the World Series, but when you take a look back after all these years and, you know, a lot of time has elapsed, what stands out to you about the '73 Mets and what you guys were able to do?
What stands out is we were leading 3-2 going to Oakland, and we felt very confident that we could, you know, win in Oakland. But it just didn't work out that way, and you can, you know, many people have, you know, second guessed on how that all played out. But that was the thing that stands out the most because we were so confident. And we certainly had the horses to win, but it didn't work out that way. So we were pretty depressed after that 7th game.
And also with that team, really that team is synonymous with a lot of players, but one of them being Tug McGraw, who unfortunately has left us. How good of a teammate was Tug McGraw and what you guys were able to accomplish in New York?
Tug was one of my closest buddies on the team, and he was great. He was great in the clubhouse. He was great on the field. He was just great to be around. He was always in a good mood. Never saw him angry or hardly ever down. He was a leader. He kept the club loose, and he was just one great athlete. He could throw with either arm. Matter of fact, I think he did once in the minor leagues, or maybe an exhibition game in the big leagues. But he was fun to watch, even as a teammate.
And just like Tug, you both played in New York, and then, Tug went to Philly, and at the end of your career, after a few other stops, you finished up in Philly. Can you just compare to me, because we're in a market of New Jersey where we got a lot of Mets fans and also a lot of Phillies fans as well, what it was like comparing playing in New York and then also Philadelphia?
Well, New York certainly is my alma mater, and I loved playing there, and the greatest fans in the world. Well, then I get finally traded to Philadelphia, and I remember after the first game, we're in the shower, just Tug and me. The rest had all finished already, and Tug and I are in the shower showering, and Tug says, "Hey, Koos, if you known you were going to last as long, would you took better care of yourself?" And I said, "Absolutely."
That's excellent. That's just excellent. So thanks so much, Jerry. Have a great day, and hit him straight tomorrow.
Thank you. I will.